What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Crew 2, and in this video I will be revisiting the Lamborghini Egoista, which back in the day was probably one of the best hypercars in the game. It was crazy fast, insanely good handling, good stability, pretty much the best overall car in the game, I would say. I use it on skills, races, pretty much everything, and well, we all know the hyperclass is insanely competitive with Koenigsegg's, Bugattis. The new Lucky Proto 1 here is insanely good as well. We all know this class is insanely competitive and probably the most used one in the game as well, so when they add a new car, will that actually make some of the older hypercars like obsolete or not usable? So I want to test this thing out a little bit by doing a top speed run right now with it, because I know back in the day this car was nerfed because it was literally that good, basically taking over everything else and pretty much owning it all. I was actually the only vehicle I used on a lot of the skills and all that in a lot of races. This car was crazy good. I've actually been testing this car out a little bit because I want to see how it actually compares now in 2022 compared to some of the new hypercars, and honestly I can say this car is insanely good to use still and definitely a great viable choice for skills and or races. From the testing I've done on this car recently, I can honestly say it is definitely very usable on pretty much everything still. I mean, I'd even go as far as saying you can use this car over the Bugattis if you really wanted to. Now I'm going to do a top speed run to see what this car can now get to in 2022. Then I'm going to jump into a hyper race and test it out a little bit more. Now I'm sure many people have already seen what this car looks like, but taking an outside look at this vehicle real fast, we can all agree it's one of the craziest looking cars in the game, and this interior is insane. Anyway, let's go jump into the top speed run now with this car. So as I mentioned before, the Lamborghini has really never been a bad car. I know this car was nerfed a lot back in the day because it was honestly insanely good, and a lot of people were running it on pretty much everything, whether it was skills or races, and I'm not gonna lie, I was using this car a lot back in the day as well. But here's the top speed run right now. Now, if you are wondering, I am using Nitro Chemist on here as well to get the best speed possible, because I want to see, can this car still do 300 miles an hour? Let's find out. Nitrous right now. Let's see, get over this hill a little bit. We have this sharp turn coming up. And even now when driving this car, I'm still very surprised how well this thing handles. Go around this turn here. Look at that. A lot of stability, no issues at all. It kind of makes you wonder why everyone really used it back in the day. So 290 there. So coming up to 300 miles an hour, let's hit the nitrous now. 317 miles an hour. Absolutely insane, guys. Honestly, it's really what I expected from this vehicle because it's still insanely quick, handles really good, and I honestly have not seen a lot of people use this vehicle. I might even start running it again over the Bugatti Divo. Do keep in mind, as I mentioned before though, I noticed depending on the street and or highway that you guys might be on, sometimes the cars do struggle to get to that 300 mile an hour mark, at least what I have noticed, and other times they can get well above that, hitting like 315 or 317 like you guys saw me hit before with the Egoista. So I figured I would jump into Latrell's part 2 with the Lamborghini Egoista because funnily enough, I actually did this race before testing this car out and I managed to beat my time on it second try. So I can honestly say this car is well worth a look if you guys are wondering about using it again or like if it's actually still usable. It kind of blows my mind to be honest because there is a lot of good cars in the hypercar class as I mentioned before, and well, we all know this is probably the most used class in the game, so obviously there's going to be a lot of good cars, but the biggest question is, can some of these older hypercars actually be used in like summits and all that and or racing against some of the new hypercars like the new Bugattis or Koenigsegg's? And to be honest, I would say a lot of the old vehicles are still a very good option if you guys were wondering. I mean, the Egoista is still a great car. It's insanely fast, hitting 317 miles an hour on that straightaway with Nitro Chemist just honestly blew me away. I was not expecting that car to still do this, and to my surprise, it did it with no issues at all, just like it did back in the day. I used to use this thing on skills and all that in the summits, and it was insanely good back then and still is. I mean, a lot of people love this car back in the day. Besides me running into that wall right there, which is kind of funny because I've been finding myself doing that a little bit more in these hypercars because I go so fast up into these corners and I'm not realizing I'm going 250 miles an hour. I literally end up running into walls or something like that, which is kind of funny. But nonetheless, back to the Lamborghini. One of my favorite things about this vehicle as well is the back of it does look like a Decepticon, I think, as well. Like it's kind of looking at you like angry almost. And I really do think the interior of this vehicle is insanely cool looking, even though it's kind of trippy to drive because you honestly can't see much of anything with the pillars of the car there. But besides that, this thing is really cool, and a lot of people were looking at the new Proto Lucky 1, wondering how that car actually is looking like that, honestly. And well, then you go take a look at the Egoista and you're like, wait a second, it kind of all makes sense now, you know? Futuristic vehicles are obviously coming, and well, when looking like that, they could be a little weird, but I do like all the competition in the hypercar class, guys. I know, like I mentioned before, this class is insanely saturated with a lot of vehicles, and well, some cars really might get lost in the mix. I mean, I've not really used a lot of the hypercars, honestly. There's only a few I really use, but I might be coming back to some of these to test them out. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want to see any specific vehicles you'd like me to test out in upcoming videos, I'd be happy to do that because I want to see if some of these older cars can actually be used still, because honestly, I feel like a lot of them are forgotten. I honestly have not really used the Egoista in a really long time, so I was like, you know what? I saw a comment on a video that asked me to do this car as well, so I was like, I'm gonna go test it out and check this thing and see what it can actually do. And to be honest, it's still one of the best cars in this class to use. I mean, it's insanely quick. It handles really well. I love the stability of this car so much as well. I mean, it just turns so well. It blows my mind, honestly, because I really don't see this car used at all anymore. And all the skills and all the summit races, I don't see anyone using this vehicle that much. Everyone's using Bugattis and all that, which I kind of get because they're insanely good. But I do want to take a visit back to old vehicles to see what these cars really could get themselves into. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching the video, and I really do hope you guys do try this car out a little bit. Now, I'm not going to lie, I've been using it a lot more than I really should be recently, and I highly recommend checking out the Egoista if you guys haven't in a while, or if you're looking to pretty much mix it up and not use a Bugatti as often. Anyway, here are the settings I'm running on the car currently, which makes this thing turn insanely well.